I'm back. My son came from downstairs. Um, Folks, I am just playing with the system right now. I'm trying to get my new camera set up, and this is going to be really short. Unless, of course, there's a lot of folks that come up and want to ask me questions. 24-year KC 135 pilot, veteran of 4 wars. I set up and helped create the KC 135 Weapons School, which is the Top Gun type community for the United States Air Force. A very intense education. Taught at the Joint Forces Staff College, Air Campaign Planning, actually campaign planning, the Joint Combined Warfighter School. Got out, went to Rockwell Collins, was a systems engineer, working on all kinds of different things. Then left Rockwell, wrote my book, Tanker Pilot Lessons from the Cockpit, that you see over here by my helmet. I'm the host of the podcast Lessons from the Cockpit, which I absolutely enjoy. I've had some great guests on. I'm also the founder of Wall Pilot, custom aviation art for the walls of your home, office, or hangar. I've got one up here above me that maybe you can see if I adjust this just a little bit. There we go. That's even better. Lighting here sucks, but again, I'm kind of playing with things. The KC 135 you see above me is a 4-foot print on vinyl that Wall Pilot does. I have 158 ready to print, everything from World War II to 5th gen fighters. We print them 4, 6, and 8 feet. We did a 30-footer for one gentleman. So that's what Wall Pilot does. Just go to wallpilot.com, pick from the 158 ready to print, or let us do a custom one for you. If there's an airplane out there that you absolutely love to have on your wall, like I have on mine, with your name on it from a particular unit, particular airplane, even weapons load for modern fighters, we can do it. We have a database of 780 aircraft profiles to pick from, thanks to a gentleman. Yes, you have, CK Ultra, which I appreciate. Thanks for joining me. Hey, CK Ultra, I'm just kind of playing with the system here, trying to make sure my webcam works. But you know what? While I'm up here, if you have questions, just go ahead and ask me. All right. CK, how does the picture look from the streaming? Would you please tell me real quick? I've got some weird lighting going on because it's 10:37 at night, but how does this view look? Because you can pretty much see from side to side. You can see my helmet over here. Great and clear. Thank you. I'm trying to get this webcam, CK. Monkey Empire, thank you for joining. And like I said, while I'm playing with this, you guys go ahead and ask me any questions that you have. Now, understand, I had a very, very unique career. There's not too many KC 135 pilots that you'll meet that have 10 catapult assisted takeoffs, 10 arrested landings on 8 aircraft carriers, and has driven an aircraft carrier while it was refueling, underway replenishing. You can see my book over here that Russian Air Force better than American Air Force. You sure about that? You sure about that? Doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm a veteran of 4 wars, man. I've seen everything. Um, as you can see, I've got a pretty extensive library on the books here below me. Um, I've been yeah, the helmet's visible. Is that what's on one side? Thank you, Monkey Empire. Hey, appreciate that you enjoy the shorts. I'm going to do a couple more um, here later on. India win a war against Pakistan. Boy, do I've got some inside intel on that. The Indians train better. Anyway, I had a very unusual career. You know, driving an aircraft carrier. Let me explain that just real quick. Do you know how you stay in position 180 feet away from the store ship that you're taking gas on? 1.2 million gallons of gas that we took on? PVC pipe Christmas tree, literally. It's PVC pipe. You go on any American ship, destroyer, cruiser, oiler, aircraft carrier, and you go into the auxiliary uh, conning towers, and right outside the window will be this long piece of PVC pipe that has sticks coming out of it, like like this, all the way down. And literally, the 180-foot line is on this stick. It has a green band on it. You put that on the water line, and that means you're 180 feet apart. And as long as that stick, that piece of PVC pipe is on the water line, you're 180 feet apart. Went out to 230. I think it came as close as 110 feet. The problem is once you're at 110 feet, the Venturi effect takes over and it brings the ships together, which is not good. And they do kind of a emergency separation where they go 5 degrees off heading, and all the lines and all the all the fuel hoses pop out, are actually pulled out. But we took on 1.2 million gallons of jet fuel, 9,000 hamburger patties, 12,000 hot dogs, 16,000 heads of lettuce. I think it was 23,000 gallons of milk. And it was crazy watch. Oh, and 300 bombs on pallets being lifted over onto the deck of the aircraft carrier, and 16 bags of mail also came across. Very fascinating. I've got a picture of it that I'll show one of these days. But underway replenishing at sea, 18 knots, 180 feet apart between the two ships. We had a Coast Guard cutter on the other side. We were on the left. The Coast Guard cutter was on the right. 1 degree heading changes. There's 4 screws on the aircraft carrier that propel it through the water. You set the outboard screws at 70% RPM and you just leave them there. All of the increase speed, decrease speed is all done from the inboard screws. Now, every 20 minutes, I needed to increase the inboard screws 1%. Whenever we were going to or getting too close or in formation, you only made 1 degree heading change. Make your heading 247. Make your heading 246. And again, it's just like flying formation in an airplane. We were connected for 6 hours. And I was one of the first people. I was the second person to hop in the Oxcon and actually drive the USS John F. Kennedy while it was underway replenishing, or what they call unrepping. I watched the guys and gals on the USS Seattle literally shoot wire lines across that are plugged in to the side of the aircraft carrier And those lines are what brings over the fuel hoses, and I believe there was 6 of them that plugged into spots literally down the whole side of the aircraft carrier, and that's how they pump fuel into the tanks. Here's the crazy thing. The John F. Kennedy had to do that every 3 days to replenish everything. There's 6,000 people on an aircraft carrier, and you've got to keep them fed and keep them going. Um, it depends on the ship's schedule because you have a day carrier and a night carrier to maintain 24-hour ops. The carrier, John F. Kennedy at the time, was the day carrier that was flying missions over Afghanistan. And, like I said, every 3 days. They stopped flight operations on the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy while they were underway replenishing. I have talked to an Air Wing commander who said we are not stopping air operations while we are underway replenishing. And he has this great video of Tomcats, Hornets, EA-6Bs, Hawkeyes, S-3 Vikings being catapulted off the carrier deck during Iraqi freedom while they were underway replenishing. So, okay, again, yeah, they don't have to go into port. They actually stay out at sea, and a ship goes into port, gets all of this stuff, brings it all out to the aircraft carrier. And like I said, they're side by side, 180 feet apart, same heading, 18 knots, and they start passing stuff in between the two ships. Okay, F-15 and later F-117 crew chief. Excellent. Lots of airtime on airlifts with various AF heavies. Maiden voyage on the C-17 from Holloman to the Middle East. That's a long drive. Yemen doesn't have a military. Glad this is fascinating. But that's literally how they keep an aircraft carrier at sea. Now, again, this happens every 3 days. They have to do all this every 3 days. Imagine this, okay? What did I say? 12,000 hot dogs? They go through 12,000 hot dogs in 3 days. The first time I was on an aircraft carrier, literally, I thought they were pimping me because they said, um, uh, I thought they were punking me because they said, Sluggo, you have not experienced carrier life unless you've had a slider, roller, and auto dog. And I'm like going, what? What's that? And my escort at the time, Hey Joe, F-14 Rio and the swordsman, VF-32, said, you're going to learn. And I thought, man, how embarrassing is this going to be? Wasn't embarrassing at all. He says, hey, we're going to go eat mid-rats. Mid-rations are in the evening, late evening on board the ship. And folks, they had a salad bar that, rivals some of the even best restaurants you've ever been in. Literally everything you could want on a salad, they had. Croutons, cheese, lettuce, different kinds of lettuce, spinach, carrots. Everything you could imagine on a salad bar. They had it on the aircraft carrier, which I thought was amazing. I was at a base at Jeddah, and we didn't have that kind of a salad bar at my base. They had a better one on the ship. So anyway, I go to Mid-Rats. I sit with all the VF-32 swordsman bubbas. And here's the cool thing. Obviously, sitting down with all these F-14 folks, I wanted to learn because I realized that the United States Air Force was not basically satisfying our customer because we didn't know how the customer operated. And I'll get into that here in a minute. Okay. Okay, better than Golden Corral. Close, real close. Okay. The salad bar was just about as long, I'll tell you that. Um, so we go in to the bid rats area, and they call it the dirty shirt mess. And that's where people can go in their flight suits and their grubbies and everything. I went and sat down at VF-32's table. They had their own table there. So, slider, roller, and auto dog. Slider is a hamburger, as slide, flip over, slide, flip over. A roller was a hot dog because it sits in that metal thing and rolls and rolls and rolls. Auto dog, ice cream. Okay, so why the name Auto Dog? Because, as my good friend Hey Joe explained to me, when it comes out of the machine, it looks like a dog with diarrhea. So they call it Auto Dog or just plain dog. They had chocolate, vanilla chocolate. I mean, it was pretty good. Now, obviously, eating all this stuff is not a great way to manage your weight, all right? But this was mid-rats. Breakfast in the morning, you know, they had a guy that did omelets. Matter of fact, 2 guys that did omelets. What omelet do you want? Ham and cheese is my favorite, or bacon and cheese. Scrambled eggs, bacon, sausage, orange juice, donuts, everything. It was all right there when you went to eat. And you could eat as much as you want, go through as many times as you want. All right. Yeah, turd swirls. Exactly. They had the center one was vanilla and chocolate. Okay, Rogers. And yeah, it looked like, turd swirl. Anyway, but that was slider roller not. Breakfast, huge breakfast. All right. Um, I've had breakfast one other place that I really enjoyed. During the air campaign over Kosovo, they had 21 EA-6Bs at Aviano, the most EA-6Bs ever assembled in one place during one war. And many of them were flown by the Marines. Now, everybody bags on the Air Force because we sleep in hotels. And it's true. My hotel room during the air campaign in Kosovo was a palatial room in a villa that had been built for a guy who owned several wine vineyards in 1490 that had been made into like an Airbnb. Rooms were quite pricey. I had my own car. But here's the thing that I did. The Marines were set up at Aviano. They don't do hotels. They're all in tents. And of course, they had the mess tent. Every night I would go in about 10 o'clock. I worked through the night on the scheduling of the tankers and everything at Aviano Air Base. Had my camera with me, was shooting 60 rolls of film a week. I've got some phenomenal pictures from Aviano during the 1999 air campaign. So I'm getting per diem, living in this huge hotel, have the car and everything like that. I'm paying $2 for breakfast every night when I come in. So we'd have what's called the Master Air Attack Plan Cell meeting, where everybody got together and said, okay, here's the intentions of this air tasking order. We always work 72 hours out. And then there's a lot of stuff that goes on during that time period where they haven't even touched how much gas they need. So I'd go to the Marine mess tent, fork over my $2, and could literally load a plate up with pancakes, omelets or scrambled eggs, bacon, sausage, orange juice. Okay. And I'm a real orange juice fan. And they had fairly big cups too, like red Solo cups. There weren't red Solo cups, but they're about the same size. I'd fill 3 of them up with orange juice. Okay. And that basically was my breakfast going into the night. All right. At the Marine mess tent. So, the carrier had really good food, and so did the Marine mess tent. Isn't that crazy? Um, Did not fight in Yugoslavia. I was actually in Italy. I did fly on a tanker mission and an AWACS mission, OKO, uh, but was basically there to do the tanker planning. We were in the middle of standing up we were middle of standing up the KC-135 weapons school, and it was time to see, hey, all the stuff we're teaching, is it right? Is it spot on, or do we need to change stuff? And this allowed us in real time in a real air campaign to figure out where there was holes in our syllabus, which we did change, and it was much better for it. So, um, but yeah, I couldn't believe it. The aircraft carrier had great food, and then for lunch and dinner, they even had pizza and pasta. They had a pasta bar too. Okay, uh, crazy. Uh, Rogers, I have been to Alpena. Um, when I was in Strategic Air Command, stationed at Pease Air Force Base, we had oh, what was it called? Something Guardian, but it was the big SAC exercise every year, and we deployed to Alpena, which was a shorter runway. And remember, I'm flying A model tankers at the time, so I don't have the big engine ones. I've got the old engine ones. Uh, it was about a 9,500-foot runway, okay, which was fine for what we were doing. The R model's 9,500 feet, plenty of room. Not so much in the A models. So I have been to Alpena, not to Selfridge, but of course Alpena has a range, live drop range, and a gun range like right next to it, fairly close to it. I think it was to the west. So worked out real nice. Okay. Um, One of the other crazy things about my career, I have 3 F-15 rides. One with my very dear friend Haas Kindred, who unfortunately was killed in a midair collision while I was at Kadena. He was one of my college buddies. Another one over Alaska during what was then called Cope Thunder, is now called Red Flag Alaska. You see my book over here, right here. I actually took that picture from the back seat of an F-15, looking down at the tanker with 3 other F-15s in the picture. My book, Tanker Pilot: Lessons from the Cockpit, was flown over the Alaska range. So I've got 3 rides in F-15. That one was with Elwood Amadon. My last one at Kadena was pretty lengthy. We took on a pretty good amount of gas, pulled 8.2 Gs, almost grayed me out. And the captain that I was flying with in 1994 is now a 4-star general and the commander of Air Combat Command, Cruiser Wilsbach, a good friend. Okay. Let's see. I've got AWACS time, helicopter time, C-130 time, VC-10 time with the Brits when I was flying out of Incirlik. Almost got an F-15 right out of Aviano, but deployed back home the day after everything wound down. S3 Viking time, obviously sitting in the back of the COD. My chopper time was in MH-60 Pavlos. While I was at Kadena in the 18th Wing, we went from the old H-4 helicopters, Sikorsky H-3 helicopters, to MH-60 Blackhawks. And my very first MH-60 ride was on night vision goggles with NVGs. An amazing night because we were doing it in formation and we were fueled behind an MC-130. They had an air refueling area 1,500 feet up north of the island of Okinawa. It was called Shark Rock because there was a lot of rocks under the water and a lot of sharks. So they said during the daytime when they did this, you could see the sharks running around underneath them. but we were late at night. We took off at right as the sun went down, landed out of an ILS, pulled up behind a Marine C-130. They reeled out the hoses out the back, refueled the helicopters to full, both us and our counterpart. They call it FARP, forward air refueling point. That's what they were practicing. We took off, went up north. We started doing night water rescues. We must have thrown out 300 of those chem lights because that's what they use to spot stuff in the water. And so I'm breaking them as fast as they're throwing them out. Uh, but these were the military chem lights. And if you put them in the freezer, they would last for like 24, almost 48 hours. I mean, bright for a long time. And that was my first introduction to search and rescue. And it was a lot of fun. And like I said, after we did some night water pickups, we went up, refueled off of an MC-130, which was really cool to watch. And then we went back down, did some more night water ops, and then came back. Our wingman at the time was getting his check ride that night too. So, and he did fabulously. So I've had a very unique career. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book too. I spent 3 years at AMC headquarters, 2 years on the floor of the Tanker Airlift Control Center, which is now called 18th AOC, Air Operations Center, managing air refueling and airlift missions all over the world. If you read my book, there's one of them in there about saving some badly burned victims of a Korean airliner 747 crash on Guam, Korean flight 801. And then my third year up there was up on the DO staff, and I stood up the KC-135 Weapons School division of what's now the United States Air Force Weapons School. Worst 4 years of my career, but probably absolutely the most rewarding. Nobody felt that we should have a weapons school. Why are tanker guys even thinking about having weapons anywhere in their name? But the importance of the tanker isn't lost to anybody, obviously. So we had to create literally a syllabus out of scratch. I think we had 482 academic hours, 18 5-hour flights, 3 3-hour sims, and a graduate level paper, and it's all done in 19 weeks. You basically get a doctor's degree in 19 weeks. So, yeah, it was not a lot of fun standing that up because nobody wanted us. And our boss, the colonel that was helping us put this thing on, was not helpful at times. But we pulled it off. Last year, we had our 25th anniversary, 243 grads. So anyway, let's see what we got here. Cool to see you live. I love your videos. Thank you, Pixel Bros. Oh, spooky gunship. You know what? The first time I ever refueled a spooky gunship was like the first time I refueled an F-117. Earlier tonight, I did one of these lives, and the only reason I'm live right now is because I'm playing with my webcam. So you guys are actually getting round two, a second dose. The AC-130 gunship is by far probably one of the best attack airplanes we have in the Air Force. Not only because it's a gunship, but because of the incredible sensors it has on it. And you can go on YouTube and search AC-130 video, and it'll come up. And I'm telling you, it doesn't do it justice, what you see on YouTube. I've seen, of course, the video, they're not going to show it to anybody. And some of it's pretty brutal. During the war in Afghanistan, the AC-130 gunship guys would make commercials about their use over Afghanistan. And it was a pretty brutal commercial. not suitable for work, as they would say. Uh, but the ability of that platform to find, fix, and often finish targets on the ground was amazing. And when it's in Overwatch, it's even more amazing. Uh, oh, you know what? That reminds me of a story. Tell me in the chat, would you guys like to hear how an AC-130 gunship captain was able to create a solution to find IEDs on roads in Iraq and Afghanistan? Okay, I swear to you, this is a true story. And to by I was told this by one of the guys that was deployed with this crew. AC-130 gunship was flying over Afghanistan, providing armed overwatch for convoys and a number of things throughout the night. They typically flew 3-hour, what we call vulnerability times, where they're responsible, have tasks, planned tasks, have also on-call tasks that they may get through the night, which sometimes would require air refueling. And we normally refueled the AC-130 gunships down about 3,000 feet at night with certain procedures that we did in the tanker on night vision goggles. One of the sensor operators was looking at one of the convoy routes, and he noticed that in the highway, there were patches of whatever the highway was made out of that was colder than the rest of the road. The asphalt cools obviously through the night, but he noticed that there were patches in the road of darker spots. And he's looking down at this through the sensors, and he starts recording it because he's trying to figure out what is it. And then he notices um, warmer patches behind the guardrails that are on some of the bigger highways. And he's going, okay, this is really weird, but I'm going to report this just because I don't know what it is and I want to find out what it is. So they get down, and during their debrief, Intel's talking to him, and he goes, do you guys have anything else? So one thing they always ask you at the end of your flight, the Intel, what did you guys see? What did you guys hear? Do you have anything else? And he says, yeah. He goes, here's video of this. There's these spots in the highways. I don't know what they are. And then there's like these spots behind the guardrails. And I don't know what they are, but they're unusual. And it's giving off a pretty significant infrared contrast from the rest of the road. So the Intel guys are kind of poring over this, and they're going, what could this possibly be? And what they figure out is it was where they had dug into the highway. The dirt was put in a pile, and it cooled faster because they had laid it out, and then they would, shovel it back in. And so you had this cool spot in the highway where they had planted and buried the IEDs. And they're like going, well, this is incredible that we have found this. And they're like going, well, what do we do with this knowledge? And the E8 Joint Stars gentleman who worked in the back of the E8 with their moving target indicator, all of you hopefully have seen what a E8 Joint Stars looks like, has that great big canoe under the forward portion of the fuselage, which is a moving target indicator radar. that is extremely accurate. And when they went to the J-Stars, Bubba's, he went, "Wait a minute. We can go back in our data and find out who stopped there and when they stopped there." And the space guys, the satellite guys and gals said, "Hey, we have overhead intelligence that will allow us to track who's been there also. And we can establish a pattern of life." And of course, the AC-130 guy go, "Okay, just so I understand, what do you mean by pattern of life?" And he says, "We can tell you where the vehicle that the J-Stars see stopping, where it came from and where it went and stopped. Point of origin and uh, point of, God, what did they call it? They had a name for it. I can't remember what it was." So they put all of this together and they said, "Okay, um, here's a pretty vicious IED that went off. Let's put all this stuff together and see what we come up with." And sure enough, the space assets, the J-Stars, and the AC-130s that recorded where those spots were, the J-Stars was able to find out what vehicle stopped there when, and it was confirmed by space-based assets. They were able to follow it to its point of destination. That's what it was, point of destination. And then they would send the special forces guys to the location in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock, and go, "We're here. You can come with us or not. We prefer not." And they found all kinds of bomb making places, all kinds of EDs. And you saw the IED incidences just drop when they were able to do this. Okay. Because obviously the folks that were planting the IEDs figured out, man, they're coming to our house and taking all of us in. And so that's one method that they used to be able to find IEDs and deal with them, just because one young captain in an AC-130 looking at the sensors, and he was curious and started asking questions. Hey, what is this? And when I go out and speak, and I do a lot of public speaking, speaking this Saturday here in Salt Lake City, speaking next week in Las Vegas. Any of you in the Las Vegas area, raise your hand. I will be at Planet Hollywood all of next week, Monday through Friday. When I talk about some of these events like that, I talk about this particular incident and say, be curious, ask questions. We often go into business situations and we don't ask what our customer really needs. We tell them, "Oh, we have a solution for you." And often that solution isn't what they need. Again, like I had um, with the Navy, we didn't know how the Navy operated. 1991, you have to remember, we're just coming out of the Cold War, and all of the tankers have been on Strategic Air Command Alert. And alls we thought lived, breathed was the single integrated operations plan, the nuclear war plan. During the 5 years I was at Pease Air Force Base, I think I refueled Navy or Marine Corps fighters during that 5 years, maybe 3 times that I can remember. Maybe. We just didn't interact with them. And now all of a sudden, I'm at Jeddah, and one of our biggest customers is the Navy. And as Hey Joe was showing me around, I said to myself, if I ever have the opportunity to change the way we do business with the Navy, I'm going to take it. I did a lot of stuff with the Navy when I was in Okinawa, the USS Independence. We did a lot of exercises with them, and it was fabulous. Their F-14 and F-18 guys would come fly in the backseat of F-15s. Their E-2 Hawkeye controllers would fly with the AWACS. Our controllers would go fly on the E-2 Hawkeye. Um, I went out and did all kinds of planning and tanker stuff with Carrier Air Wing 5 planners. And I was able to learn because we put together a joint exercise with the Independence Battle Group and the 18 wing F-15s, AWACS, tankers, and helicopters. So I got a real education. This is how the Navy works. When it came time to create the KC-135 syllabus, I said, I'm taking the Navy portion. I'm teaching the Navy. Of course, I went up to, at that time, Fallon was where Top Gun and the Naval Strike and Air Warfare Center was. And I said, you got to help me. How am I going to teach this? And they go, oh, just teach out of our Naval Strike and Air Warfare manual. I said, you got a whole manual on this? Yeah, we got a classified manual that we use for planning on all this. I had no idea that thing existed. And so I taught Air Force tanker pilots and navigators out of a classified Navy publication. Got several stripes on my back for doing it. People going, why are you doing this? This is dumb. How come you're spending all this time with the Navy? Well, a third of our receivers during any big air campaign are Navy receivers. It was the same way during Desert Storm. It was the same way during Kosovo, same way in Afghanistan, same way in Iraqi Freedom. In fact, Iraqi Freedom, over a third of our customers, about 40% of our customers was Navy, and the majority of those were Hornets because Hornets have ridiculous gas mileage. All right. They hold like 9,000 pounds internal and burn 8,000 pounds an hour at tactical speeds. Do the math. So we taught out of the Strike and Air Warfare Manual. I spent literally an entire day, 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, teaching out of that manual. And then we would go down to Coronado and we'd tour the USS Coronado, which is an Air Operations Center afloat ship. We would tour either a cruiser or a destroyer because that's what's protecting us and they're actually controlling us, the tankers. And then we would go out to sea and spend 2 days and a night at sea on an aircraft carrier. And that's why I have 10 catapult assisted takeoffs and 10 arrested landings on 8 aircraft carriers. That's how I did it. A lot of it was when I was teaching at the tanker weapons school. So, yeah, Pixel Bros, knowledge is wealth. Knowledge is power. And you know what, Pixel Bros, when you have that unique knowledge and that experience of being able to talk to Navy strike planners, it was gold. Our second class, we had to go to an East Coast carrier, and it happened to be the USS Enterprise, which was the lead carrier on the same deployment for the opening of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And one of the guys that ended up going over helping with the planning had been in that cadre of students on board the Enterprise. And Merc Mercer, the CAG, said, where do I recognize you from? And he says, sir, I'm one of those KC-135 guys that was on board your aircraft carrier and went through the KC-135. We call it the Combat Employment School at the time. And he, from what I understand, he turned to all of his folks and said, guys, he's been on a carrier. He's been through our Strike and Air Warfare Manual. Gas isn't going to be a problem. And it wasn't, because we had people that knew and understood how the Navy did their business, how they defended us, how they wanted us to do long-range strike planning, how they wanted us to do air defense over the carrier, what they call SUCAP, Surface Combat Air Patrol, where you had Hornets that were carrying HARM, Rockeye, and a laser-guided bomb, AMRAAM, and, of course, Sidewinders on the wingtips. So Um, crazy stuff. Okay. Star Trek jokes incoming. Really? Really? Hey, Ryan, how you doing? Welcome. So, uh, I've got a lot of pictures being out on the carrier deck. And if you go to my Facebook page, Passing Gas, which was what I was going to call the book, there's a lot of them there. Okay. Yeah. And Pixel Bros, there were so many nuances and intricacies that we just didn't understand. It's like going into a customer and going, "Hey, we build widgets. What kind of widget do you want?" And literally them telling us the widget that you guys build isn't the one we're looking for in most cases. And in most cases, particularly during Desert Storm, we'd go up and refuel the Navy, and most of our tanker crews, tanker planners had no idea how the Navy did their business. None. And at Jeddah, we had the Saratoga, America for a little while, and JFK in the Red Sea, and we were their primary means of air refueling. Um, here's another interesting point. Let's talk about this for just a second. In the Naval Strike and Air Warfare Manual, they had air refueling planning for their alpha packages, 26 planes or more. Now, imagine this. Uh, some of the Navy alpha packages during Iraqi freedom would have 4 Tomcats that were doing what they called self-escort, sometimes 6, with bombs in the tunnel. When I say tunnel, the area between the engines, okay, they call it the tunnel. And that area is very low drag, so they could carry 2,000 pounders with not a lot of drag on the airplane. And the first, I think, 2 nights, they were carrying, um, obviously, the lantern pod and a sidewinder on the right wing glove pylon, and a Phoenix and a sidewinder on the left wing glove pylon. The Hornets were carrying 4 by GBU 31 2,000-pound JDAMs. That's heavy. Okay. Heavy. All right. With a centerline tank. Uh, when they first started, it was 2 JDAMs. But remember, we had 2 different carrier groups. We had one in the Northern Arabian Gulf and one that was up off the coast of Turkey. And man, that's a lot of JDAMs. So 4 to 6 Tomcats, they would have 2 EA-6Bs. Okay. So now you're talking 8 airplanes. And then the rest of the 26 was Hornets. Some of them were carrying 3 by AGM 88 harms, at least one 4-ship, and the rest were bombers. The S-3s were providing gas for a little while until they got into Eastern Turkey, and then that's where they would hook up with the KC-135s. And of course, the E-2 Hawkeyes were out there also, and they integrated with B-52s coming out of Fairford. And one of the guys that was talking about coming out of Fairford, very fascinating, because they were flying over the former Eastern Bloc Warsaw Pact countries. And they would take off out of Fairford. They would go north. They would get gas the first time just before they went into this near the Baltics. They would turn southeast at Poland, come down through Poland, the Slovak, Czech Republics, down through Bulgaria, out into the Black Sea, and across the Black Sea north of Turkey. And then there was an entry point. It was a city that only had like 3 letters in the name, like Bot or Dot or something. I can't remember. I'd have to go look on a map. And then that was their entry point. And then the B-52s would integrate with the carrier strike groups, these alpha packages. And they'd be carrying like 6 to 12 2,000-pound JDAMs until later in the war. We got a new bomb. I don't know if any of you guys know this, but we got a new weapon during Iraqi freedom. It was called the CBU-105 sensor fused weapon. Go look that up. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen. We called it the Succession of Miracles weapon. And it carries 40 of these things that look like hockey pucks, and they throw them out, and they have these little rockets that spin them up and keep them in the air. And they've got infrared sensors on them, and they send a molten spall of like cobalt or something like that through the engine decks, and around the sides of it, there's little dimples in the bottom of it that create these little mini balls about yay big. And it's made for taking out vehicles and soft skin vehicles, tanks, and people. Sensor fuse weapon. It's a fantastic weapon. And so we were using those too. But when they did the air jump into Bashur with 16 C-17s, they were being covered by B-52s and carrier Air Wing 8, Tomcats, Hornets, EA-6Bs, and being controlled by Hawkeye. And all the air refueling assets were being controlled from the Hawkeye. Now, they did have AWACS that was flying over southeastern Turkey, RC-135s flying over southeastern Turkey. Their version of the RC-135, which is an EP-3 Ares 2, which is their signals intelligence plane, was also flying there too. So they had all of this together. Anyway, I'm going to read through these. I have hours of yeah, I'd love to see your footage. I've got a lot of it too. I brought some home with me from the kayak. I really enjoy videos. My grandfather served in Korean War. USS Philippine Sea. Excellent. Thanks, John Official. I appreciate that. The Jericho Iron Man missile is real. Yes. I need to look more into that, but they had some pretty interesting missiles they were throwing out. Now, obviously, the North War guys during Iraqi freedom would sometimes get harassed by the Iranians. The Iranians would say, stay on your side of the line, stay on your side of the line. And there's a famous, maybe some of you have seen this conversation between an Iranian air defense controller and a Marine F-18 Hornet. The Truman, no, it was the Roosevelt. The Roosevelt had a Marine F-18 Hornet squadron on it. It was from Dallas, Fort Worth area. It was a reserve or a guard unit. And apparently the Hornet was doing some stuff near the border. And the Iranian controller says, stay on your side, stay on your side. And the Hornet guy, okay, yeah, I'm staying on my side. Stay on your side, stay on your side. If you don't stay on your side, we're going to send people up. You will be intercepted. You will be shot down. And I guess the Marine guy said, I'm an F-18 Hornet pilot. Send him up. I'll wait. Because he's carrying air-to-air missiles. He's got 2 Sidewinders, AIM-120 AMRAAM. They were carrying a pretty mixed load. They were carrying GBU-12, laser-guided bomb, 500-pound laser-guided bomb, a 1,000-pound JDAM, GBU-32, and there was one other weapon. Oh, JSOW. AGM-154. I don't know how many of you know this. They're using AGM-154s now over Yemen because they've got some really long legs on it. It's a GPS guided glide bomb, and it's got 4 different types of payloads they can put in it. One's classified, but one's 1,000-pound bomb. One's like a area denial. I think it's actually the CBU-87 combined effects munitions in it. And what was the third one? And again, I think it's some kind of cluster bomb kind of thing. Crazy stuff. And again, they're using this. And go look at some of the video on YouTube and of the current operations. It's Truman, and I can't remember the name of the other one. There's a second carrier that just got there. Geez, it just escapes my head. There's 2 carrier battle groups now working in that area. Anyway, it shows them loading JSOW on the Super Hornets, and some of them are carrying as many as 4 of these JSOW weapons. They're great for mobile and fixed surface-to-air missile sites. They're great for that kind of stuff because you can stand off and launch these things from quite a ways away. Now, the B1s that are over there have been using, it looks like a JSOW, but it's a low observable cruise missile. It's got, I think, 230-mile range. It's called a AGM-158 Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile, JASM. And they're having great success with that. The first time they used them was back in the first Trump administration, and B1s launched on the Syrian headquarters where all of their chemical weapons, biological weapons, weapons of mass destruction research facility was, and literally reduced it to rocks like the size of your fist. The Navy has a version of JASM they call LRASM, long range anti-ship missile. It literally is the same kind of cruise missile. It's got a smart brain in it to avoid anybody trying to paint it on radar. And it's made for taking out ships. So those new weapons are being used. Is there any of you out there that happen to build plastic model planes like I used to? I got a closet full of them. I haven't built one in, I don't know, a decade. But any of you out there who have built plastic models, you can get these things, for your models now. Okay, I've not been to Jacksonville, flown over it, but never been there. Somalia, yeah, another weird place. Carl Vinson, thank you, Pixel Bros. You are correct. It was Carl Vinson. All right. So it's Vinson and Truman that are over there now. Ryan, I would love to build a model. I've got so many of them in there. A lot of them. I used to have in a closet in big Tupperware tubs. I think I was at 582 unbuilt plastic model planes. That's more of an illness than a hobby. God, there was one other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. I'm going to save the 13th through 14th of April last year, the huge swarm of Iranian one-way suicide drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles, and a report on that for another barn night, okay? The 335th Fighter Squadron at Seymour Johnson, the Chiefs, just had their huge award ceremony. People getting DFCs for the F-15E Strike Eagles shooting down a lot of these drones and cruise missiles. The 494th Panthers from Lakenheath uh, got home just before the first of the year. They have a crew, a major weapons school graduate pilot, and a captain gal who won silver stars, were awarded silver stars for directing traffic on that night. And there's a really cool video. Maybe I'll put the video up that the chief of staff of the Air Force did, talking to some of these crews and what it was like flying that night with Patriot batteries launching off from your base that you're launching out of, trying to shoot all these things down. Guess which weapon they use predominantly? AIM-9X. When I was at the Operational Test and Evaluation Center for the United States Air Force, I had all joint weapons. Now, you're asking yourself, a tanker guy, really? All joint weapons, JDAMs, AIM-9X, small diameter bomb? Yeah. And I told my boss, why are you giving me all joint weapons? I'm a tanker guy. Never shot a gun, never dropped a bomb, never shot a missile. He says, yeah, but you're a weapons school grad. You've been through the core courses and you know all this. One of the funnest assignments I ever had. And AIM-9X was one of my big programs. And I was working on the Block 2 missiles, which is what they've got in theater right now. And one of the requirements was it had to be able to engage and hit a low altitude cruise missile with a certain percentage of kill percentage. And on the 13th and 14th of April last year, the Navy F-18 Super Hornets and the Strike Eagles got most of the kills with AIM-9X. Matter of fact, the Lakenheath F-15Es had red AIM-9X silhouettes on the side of their airplanes. And there was one that had 11, if I remember right. The crew actually shot a bunch of missiles, landed, uploaded a bunch of missiles, went back up, shot a bunch more missiles, and then landed. And predominantly the AIM-9X was doing really well. Now, a lot of people on my shorts have commented, why are we using a multi-million-dollar missile on a drone that maybe cost $5,000, $10,000? Well, guess what? How many of you know about the Advanced Precision Kill Weapon System and what it even is? It's a 2.75 rocket that is now laser guided. And a very dear friend of mine who has a son in Spangdahlem that was deployed said they shot down a lot of these drones with this 2.75 rocket because they're laser guided. When you lock onto the drone, the sniper targeting pod locks on it too, sends the laser out and designates it, and they'd shoot those 2.75 rockets laser guided at the drones, at the cruise missiles with great success. So instead of using like $1 million missile, now we're using, I don't know, maybe a $20,000 rocket. And it's got plenty of warhead on it to take these things out. Okay, yo, how are you an expert on that weapon? Just curious. Okay, I had a huge argument about Avro Arrow and its legacy leading up to the 104 and the 105. Yeah, Sidewinder, AIM-9X Sidewinder. That's the advanced one. I mean, yeah, sure, you can't tell me. All right, let's look through here. Oh, nuts. It's almost midnight. How many of you are on the East Coast? Folks, I didn't plan on this. I'd already had a live earlier tonight. I did not plan on this because I was just messing with my camera here, getting it to work. Pixel Bro, what state are you in? I am also Mountain Standard Time. That's why I ask. Um, 7:38 a.m. CYP3. Where the heck are you living? East Coast. 1:38 in the morning here. Idaho. Okay. Sweden. SIP3, you're in Sweden? Where in Sweden? Just curious. Yeah, Jason, I've seen that guy's YouTube channel. I would love to go to Lake and Heath, and there may be bombers at Fairford right now too. I am not from Provo. I'd love to go see some of the Greek F4s. I don't know when they're going to retire them. I think the Turks just retired their F4Es, I think, not too long ago. They've been wanting F-35s, and we've been reluctant to sell them F-35s. Helsingborg, thanks for joining. SIP3, thank you for joining tonight. Yeah, F4 is a big jet. But you know what? I thought the F4 was a big jet until I walked all over an F-15. That freaking tennis court flying in the air. Best three militaries. I'm going to save that for another night. See, it's hard to do that. What are the best three militaries? Because some will have strong air forces, but maybe weak army. Not weak army, but the army isn't quite up to speed. You know, it's hard to say the top three militaries. Obviously, a lot of people would come to mind. America, I wouldn't put the UK in there, not anymore. I'd put America, China, and Russia. And I'd say America first, simply because it's not so much because of our technology, which our technology is fabulous. You have to understand. Go listen to episode 106, where I interview uh, Shrek Sullivan, and he has his good friend Glibby Gillette jump on, and they talk about what it's like flying the F-35 and the absolute beast that is, not only because it's low observable, because of the sensor systems in it. It's amazing. You know, Serbia underrated, right? America and China and Russia. America first. Russia's pretty beaten down right now because of the war in Ukraine. So I don't know if I'd put China second or Russia second, but I would agree. Okay, yo, those are the three. Okay, gentlemen. My purpose was to come in here and test this camera, not to be on for, how long have I been on? An hour and 9 minutes. This test of this webcam has gone on for an hour and 9 minutes now. And I'm tired, and I haven't even posted my shorts for tonight. Okay, my YouTube shorts. How do you guys like my YouTube shorts? I saw the tank round one just went over 1 million, and I think the A350 taking off and the A380 landing is about to go over 1 million also. I don't know if you guys know it, but I also have an Instagram channel and a TikTok channel. And I think they're just Marcus Hera. TikTok has been disappointing lately. I say that, but I had one go over 1 million not too long ago. You want to know where my most viewed short or reel of all time is? How many of you go to my Instagram page? How many of you watched the Pathfinder airplane down low, fireman in the foreground, lays smoke, and the DC-10 air tanker comes up over the hill and lays the slime down? Have you seen that one on Instagram? If you haven't, go see that. As of tonight, that is my most viewed post by far. When I checked it tonight, it had 19.7 million views. I never thought it would have that many. Never thought it would be that. Okay. John O. Official, I appreciate that. I tell everybody, just trying to educate and entertain. That's all I'm trying to do. And I enjoy it. Enjoy the podcast. Enjoy talking to all of you. And I appreciate all of you in the chat here asking really good questions and good conversation here, okay? For a webcam test that I thought was only going to last for 5 minutes and has lasted an hour and 11. Okay, gentlemen, I'm tired. Those of you on the East Coast should be really tired. And again, thanks for joining. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Become a member of my All Ranks Club on Patreon. We just had these made. Those that join my Patreon channel at the designated driver and buy the bar every month, you get one of these. They peel off. It's 7 inches long. It's kind of like my calling card. There's 10 of them, 10 different airplanes. It peels off. You can stick it on a water bottle or the back of your computer or whatever. And guess what? They are dishwasher safe. They will not come off in a dishwasher. I've had one of them on my water bottle for 8 months now. They don't come off. Okay, so there's the 64th Aggressor Squadron, the Black Viper. They call it the Vader Viper, or the Wraith is its real name. Some people nickname it the Vader Viper. Let's see what else we got here. This is the Wing Commander's airplane from Desert Storm, the 33rd Nomads. And if I remember right, I think it got 3 kills. And again, these peel off and go on stuff. Okay. I'm working on a KC-135. I'm working on 15 more. But of course, had to have a tanker. This is actually a tanker at Pease Air Force Base in the 157th. I know the gal that painted the tail. Let me hold it up here a little closer. And it's a little fuzzy. Anyway, I draw these. Taught myself how to illustrate airplanes in Adobe Illustrator. A7. This was flown by former 4-star Admiral Leighton Snuffy Smith when he got his Distinguished Flying Cross, taking out SAM sites in Haiphong in 1972. And again, these all peel off. Everybody always asks me, hey, Sluggo, what's some of your favorite airplane? I always ask people, okay, let me go by time period. All right. World War II, Korean, Vietnam, modern era, like Afghanistan, Iraq. One of my favorite airplanes, Tomcat. I loved seeing Tomcats. And this is the squadron commander's airplane from VF-31, the Tomcatters. And it is loaded the way it took off the opening night of Iraqi Freedom, went downtown and dropped bombs on targets downtown. Had 3 GBU 31s in the tunnel, and Phoenix and Sidewinder, and obviously the lantern pod on the other side. Butkus was the squadron commander. The guy that took over from Aaron Sosnowski, call sign Suds, became a good friend and still remains so. But again, these peel off, and if you become a member of my Patreon club, All Ranks Club, I send you one of those every month until you have all 10. The next 15 I'm working on, C-54 Berlin Airlift, Focke-Wulf 190, the U-2 Senior Spur airplane. It's the one with the long nose and the big antenna on the top. Rogers, I haven't done a P-38 yet, but working on that. Let's see what else. In the current bunch, I've got a Strike Eagle. It's called Claw and Kitty. It's the 494th Strike Eagle that got, I think, 11 drone and cruise missile kills the night of the 13th and 14th of April. So there'll be a lot more of these to choose from. And as I said, they peel off. They're 7 inches long. They can go on water bottles and just about anything you want. Back of your computer, whatever. All right. Hey, Vic, 1:50 a.m. Cape Cod. I've been to Cape Cod, Vic. Glad you joined us. I'm sorry it's so late in the morning. What are you doing up, I guess, is the question I should be asking. Okay. Rogers, I've done F-16 Weasels. If you go to wallpilot.com and they're ready to print, there's several of them. You want to hear a funny story about one? Of course you do. It's only 1:50 in the morning where Vic is. We're refueling Misawa 14th Fighter Squadron, Samurai Squadron, Wild Weasels over Turkey that were flying Northern Watch missions. And my boom operator says, "Sir, the airplane doesn't have a tail number." And I go, "What do you mean it doesn't have a tail number? Every airplane's got a tail number." "Sir, it's not a tail number, it's a name." And I went, "What?" And he says, "Yeah, it doesn't have a tail number." I said, "Okay, hang on, boom. Wait till he's outside my window and I'll tell you what it is. I'll figure it out." So this F-16 is carrying 2 harms, 2 sidewinders, 2 AMRAAMs, has got ALQ 134, or excuse me, ALQ 184 ECM pod, and comes outside the window. And I start laughing. And I say to my boom operator, "Boom, the one that doesn't have a tail number but has a name, here's the tail number. 912808. He goes, "Sir, how did you know that?" I said, "Age and treachery will always overcome youth and exuberance." I just figured it out. So the tail number was 91808. The crew chief had taken a grease pencil and had squared out the corners on the left-hand side of the 8s. And the center where, the comes like this, okay? So the top left corners and the center of the 8s had been filled in with a black grease pencil. Even though it was gunship gray, it's still filled in. So that tail number 808 said Bob. The aircraft's name was Bob because the crew chief filled in the left side of the 8s with a grease pencil and it said Bob. They called the Weasel Bob. That airplane, 808 Bob, is still at Misawa, and I was taking pictures of it in 2001. Here it is, 2025, and Bob is still at Misawa. Matter of fact, it's the 35th wing commander's jet because it's so famous. They said BOB means bombs over Baghdad, and it actually had that on the intake cover, Bob, bombs over Baghdad. But the F-16 was called Bob. And if you would like like you see here, this is my tanker from Kadena. If you want a 4, 6, or 8-foot print of Bob, go to wallpilot.com, and Bob's in the ready to print. All right. Wheels up, but it's armed the way it was when we were flying missions over Northern Iraq, Northern Watch. Okay. A 4-footer is $99.99. 6-footer is $129.99. And I believe the 8-footer is $159.99. Very reasonable. And again, 4, 6, and 8-foot. But folks, you can read the stenciling on the missiles. That's the detail I went to. You can see the arming keys on the sidewinders, all of the stenciling on the harms, all the stenciling on the AOQ 184. Just to go to wallpilot.com, cruise through the 158 ready to print. But like I said, if you want a custom one, we can do a custom one. I've got Japanese World War II, Luftwaffe World War II, Navy and Army Air Corps World War II, Korean fighters, airlifters, C-54s, P-38s, you name it. I actually have a gentleman in Ukraine who was wounded in the current ongoing conflict there, who is a superb profile line artist, and then I just go fill them in. And that's one of the things I do. I've went from building plastic model airplanes to drawing the airplanes now, basically. All right. Outrunning missiles. Yeah. No, $15 ain't going to do it. $15. $15 will get you 2 of these. Corsair would be cool. I think I just showed you one. Or are you talking World War II, or are you talking that kind of Corsair? Ban me. I'm an idiot. You're not an idiot. You just have a very active brainwave. Let me just say that, okay? And I don't mean that in an offensive way. You're welcome. Okay, I tried to sign off, 12 minutes ago? Okay, forced to register. You're saying good morning where? Good morning from where? Favorite drink? Used to be caffeine-free Diet Coke with lime. I'm drinking a lot more water now. I'm getting up there in years and carrying a little more weight than I need to be, so I'm drinking more water. Florida. Dude, you're up late. Or you're just getting up, one of the two. Woulda? Yep, woulda. All right, folks, I gotta go. I still have posts to make. Okay, yo, I lived in Dunwoody for 6 years. Went to Peachtree High School. Folks, thanks for joining on my 5-minute webcam test that has gone for 1 hour and 24 minutes now. I really appreciate all of you coming by, asking questions, and spending time with me, okay? There'll be more of these. I'm trying to do them on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock and Thursday nights at 8 o'clock. I call it virtual bar night. You hear me talking about in my intros and extras on my podcasts, virtual bar nights. And this is what I'd like to do. All right. And again, I'm just going to open it up for questions. Want to hear your stories, obviously, also, and discuss, your aviation journey. Mine started when I was 5 years old, standing on the hood of my grandpa Andy's car at the end of the runways at Los Angeles International Airport in 1960, 61, 62 timeframe, when 707s from Pan Am and American and DC-8s from Delta and United were just starting to fly. So that's my aviation origin story. Thanks again, folks. Sluggo signing out here.